So, when did I first get interested in geography? I would say, I've been interested in geography for most of my life, actually. I remember being maybe 2 or 3 years old, and on weekends with my mother and father, we would generally take these car trips. So my parents always really loved to take rides places. And we would go on 2, 3, sometimes even like 4-hour car trips. And I'm really little. I'm too little to see out the windows. So, I don't really remember how I thought about this because it was so long ago, but I didn't have much to do. But there would generally be like a Rand McNally road atlas on the floor underneath one of the car seats. And it got to the point to where I would really look forward to taking those trips so I could pick that road atlas up and look through it and look at all the maps and look at the cities and the roads, and I'd memorize like the highest point in every state and where it was so that I could flick to the page and instantly find the highest point. I just became interested in what those places were like and what they meant. And that was really how I started to have an interest in geography. And it never really went away my whole life. I never necessarily thought that I would study it at a point when I went to college. It was never something like, oh, I'm going to study geography. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a little kid. And I wanted to be a journalist most of the time that I was in high school. But I guess it's just because I never realized that geography was a job or that you could do geography work. But I was always interested in the field of study and as an interest point. So, yeah.
Cool. What made you decide to come to UT and study geography?
Okay. Coming to UT was not so much a decision like, oh, UT is this great school and I'm going to move here to go to UT. I moved to the Knoxville area when I was 19 or 20 as a result of Hurricane Katrina, which wiped out my hometown when I was 18. Fortunately, it was right after I graduated high school. So I didn't have a place to live permanently for about a year, and the following August, at the anniversary point of the hurricane, I had moved to a house in Sevierville, Tennessee, which is about 30 miles to the south, I think. And I've lived in the area ever since. I started going to Walters State Community College in Morristown and transferred here as a junior in 2009. And I finished my undergraduate degree here, and I stayed in the area after graduating and came back for grad school a year and a half later. So coming to UT was more of maybe a practical or a proximity thing than it was necessarily a choice.
Were you a geography major before you got to UT?
Yeah. So in high school, I was all about studying communication and being a journalism student. But like I said a few minutes ago, when Hurricane Katrina came, I was 18. I just graduated high school. And I didn't have, after the storm had came, I didn't have anything to do for a year and a half or so, other than work menial wage labor jobs. But it was a really uncertain time. But I had a lot of time to think about what I really wanted to do. And it was in that year and a half between when the storm hit and when I'd started going to college that I thought about it more and realized I've always been more interested in geography than anything else. So I resolved to study it. Even though I didn't necessarily know or think there may be jobs out there with it, I just decided it's what I've always liked the most, so I'll study it and I'll find something I can do with it later. So I have, since I've been in school, I have always been a geography major. Walters State is one of the few community colleges that offers an associate's degree in geography, and that was something that was cool. It's not why I went there. It was just a way to save money and start my education. But yeah, ever since I started in higher education, I've been a geography student.
What made you choose geography when you got to Walter State Community College?
I had wanted to study I decided before that. It was in that intervening period of time between the hurricane and my starting my college career that I thought it over, and I realized this is what I like the most. It's what I've always been the most interested in, and this is what I'm just going to go ahead and study, and I'll see where it takes me.
What were the first geography classes that you took?
First geography classes that I took, as a child or as a teenager in high school, or do you mean in college?
Like ever.
Okay, wow. Let's go back.
And then in college.
Again, I guess as a child we had social studies classes that would incorporate geography into the program a bit, and I always really liked that kind of stuff. But I suppose the first geography class I ever took would have been in 9th grade. I took a high school world geography class. Of course, it was taught by a person with a history degree, but we did some of those, memorizing state capitals and where is this place kind of stuff. What most people generally think of when they think of geography, but what we generally eschew and shy away from ascribing to our field. In 11th grade, I took AP Human Geography, which got a little bit closer, I think, to what I was interested in. But, at the time, still, I had planned all along to study journalism, communications. It didn't even really cross my mind as a high school student that I could study geography, even taking AP Human Geography. And again, we didn't have anybody trained in geography. The closest we had was maybe some history teachers. So maybe that's part of the reason why it never crossed my mind that I could do anything with this when I was in high school. At the college level, then, I suppose as a freshman I had to take World Geography 101 or whatever the equivalent was, and it was not taught very well at the school that I was going to at the time. It was an adjunct professor who was teaching the course, and he had some kind of training in surveying land or something like that. And it really wasn't any more engaging than a high school class. Maybe my 9th grade World Geography class was akin to it. We didn't really tackle concepts, but we just sort of went over where places were and what cities were there and things like that. Maybe landmarks, big famous events, but it wasn't so much an in-depth introduction to geography. I did have a second geography class toward the end of my time at Walter State, and it was taught a little bit better. The professor in that class also was not a geographer, but he had professed a real interest in geography. And there we did start to get into some concepts that dealt with maybe rural to urban migration, or other things that, I guess that sticks out to me because that's something I'm interested in studying now. But we did talk about concepts of geography beyond just where places are, but aspects of physical and human geography that maybe would give some people some insight into what kind of work you can actually do there. And then I got here, and ever since I've been at UT, I've probably taken 50 to 60 hours of geography classes, given my undergraduate and graduate time here.
What opportunities did you have here as an undergrad?
I had a lot of really great opportunities as an undergrad here, and it's probably the biggest reason why I decided to go on and become a graduate student. It never crossed my mind that I would stay in college beyond those first 4 years, when I was in high school. But when I came here, one of the very first classes I was enrolled in was Geography 131, which is like the Physical Geography Introductory class, and it was taught by a PhD student named Mark Spond. He was one of Henry Gracino Mayer's students. And about maybe 2 months into the class, he had announced that he had space for an undergraduate to work with him in the laboratory of tree ring science in the surf building. And at that point, while I was definitely, a little bit more interested in human geography, and I always have been, I was really open to just learning more about the field and what it was like to be a graduate student. So I talked to him about that. He was really receptive, and at the beginning of the next semester, I started to work with him in the tree ring lab. And I did that for about a year as an undergraduate here. And, I learned a bit about using microscopes and studying tree rings and things like that, which doesn't really have much to do with my current research interests. But what I got from that, which was more valuable than anything else, was that I learned what it was like to be a graduate student. And it was really interesting, and it was more fruitful than any class ever could have been. I got to interact with graduate students. I saw what work went into their projects, and I saw how much they got from it, even though it was really difficult and they complained and they didn't sugarcoat it. But you could tell that they were really motivated, driven people who really got a lot out of the experience. And it was definitely at that point that I realized I wanted to be a graduate student. I wanted to do what they did. And I started working in that lab in January, and that summer I was able to go on a trip to New Mexico with Mark and help core trees for his PhD project. And it was the first time I'd ever flown in a plane before. And I've never flown not for a geography project. So it's crazy. Most of the traveling I've been able to do in my life is because I've been studying geography, because it requires you to have a sense of you have to visit a place. We're so interested in place, and you can't really say anything authoritative about a place without ever having been to that place. And so I got to fly to New Mexico, camp in the desert or in the sagebrush, and it was a really great experience. And in addition to that, as an undergrad, in my final semester here, I was able to work as a research assistant to my current advisor, Micheline van Riemsdijk. Just as in the other instance, I was in class one day with her in the prior semester. She announced she had this position. I talked to her about it. She was receptive, and the following semester we started on this project. And this was a pretty big departure from working in the tree ring lab, but it was still a sort of foray into what the research process was like. And for the first time, I really took on a project of my own. She would have me look up information, do data mining for her, but she also sort of stipulated that I was to come up with the project, design it, and sort of write a senior thesis type thing. And with that, I was encouraged to participate in the undergraduate research exposition, the Eureka, and I made a poster for the first time. I had presented my research at this conference, and I won an award for it. And it was a really motivating experience. It felt great, and I went on to complete that paper. I submitted it to the campus undergraduate research journal, and it was accepted. And that also, it felt really gratifying to conceptualize a project, to go through the research process, and for the end result to be accepted and well received by reviewers, peers, and professors. It felt really great, and at that point I definitely knew I was going to go on and try to pursue a graduate career. But I'm really grateful for the opportunities that are present in this department specifically, because I have a lot of friends who are undergraduates here from various programs. I've lived in Knoxville for a while now, and I know a lot of people have gone through UT, and I don't know anyone else who's really had the opportunity to get as engaged with research as I had as an undergraduate. As an undergraduate, in my second to last semester here, I took a course with Dr. Micheline van Riemsdijk. I believe it was Population and Environment. And I liked the course a lot. I'd known that one of the areas of geography that I was really interested in was people, was population, was where do they live and how do they cluster and things like that. So I was really looking forward to the class. And we got in there, and it was a good class. I was really interested in it, and it was probably my favorite up to that point that I had taken. And in the course, just as in the previous experience, at some point in the semester, Micheline had written on the whiteboard an announcement that she'd be looking for a new research assistant for the following semester to help her with her project, which at that time was studying IT specialists in Bangalore and global local relationships with Atlanta. And I thought, this would be a nice opportunity to do something probably more related to what I'm really interested in. So I went to see her in her office one day, and she was really open to the idea of my working with her. And we talked a little bit more about this as the semester went on, and I was able to take this on starting in the next semester. With her, I got to know her very well in this experience. We'd meet once a week, and I helped her with her research, and I conducted my own research project under her guidance. And as I mentioned before, she had encouraged me to participate in the Eureka, and I had done well with that. She encouraged me to submit to the undergraduate research journal Pursuit, and I'd done well with that. So we had become pretty close in that relationship in that time. And I was interested in the research that she did all along, and I think because of this relationship that we had been able to form when I was an undergrad, when it was time for me to go back to graduate school, or to go to graduate school, I was really open to working with her again and developing, my skills further. I'd become really confident in her ability to work with me. Having known her pretty well to begin with, I was very comfortable working with her and comfortable in knowing that she'd be able to help me get where I would want to get as a graduate student. So it was pretty natural to decide to work with Micheline on this project, both because of shared research interests and this sort of compatibility in terms of a working relationship that we'd already established.
And what opportunities have you had now, or has working with Micheline helped your own research, graduate research?
Definitely. Now, as I suppose in one really tangible way, I've sort of worked on a cleavage of her own research that's somewhat related to it on the migration of students to Norway. And through this process, I was able to receive funding to travel to Norway this past summer. And so I spent about a month there conducting interviews and distributing a survey I produced. And it's the first time I'd ever traveled abroad, and I got to do that working with Micheline, who helped craft my grant proposals. I wrote a few, and one of them was accepted. And having this experience, getting to go there, it's definitely something I would not have done. And even if I had tried to do it, I don't think I would have had the know-how to succeed in it had I not been working with Micheline and not had her guidance in helping me get there. Also, just because she's really interested in migration, and that's the aspect of research that I'm also most interested in, I've been able to sort of learn a lot from her as to what are important things to read, what are good ways to do this kind of research, how should I go about finding subjects to interview or potential participants, and different ways to use these methods in practical and advantageous ways, since she has a lot of experience in doing them herself. So I've definitely gained a lot in terms of my research and in terms of just personal fulfillment from working with her and from being a student here in this department.
Anything else?
Do you have anything else you'd like to share with us?
That's a good question. All I can really think of to say is that, to reiterate on the very last thing that I said, I am very grateful for the opportunity that I have had in studying in this department. Again, I feel like there are a lot of opportunities for students here as undergraduates, which I was, that makes you feel like you're part of the community in a way that I just don't think most departments here or probably at other universities do. And because of that, I was encouraged to go on. And no one else in my family has ever gone to college. I'm a first-generation student, and I never knew what graduate school was. But being in a department that was open to helping undergraduates, learn about this process and to involve them in the community, gave me that confidence that I didn't get anywhere else. And if I hadn't gone here, I'm not so sure I would be a graduate student now. So I'm really grateful to the department for being so, and the faculty in the department for being so, welcoming to people in general, I think. And it's been a great time this far.
I guess one more question.
Yeah.
What do you hope to do in the future with your degree?
Sure. Well, I'm going to hopefully have my master's here pretty soon. And at that point, I would like to sort of go out and find some work, hopefully doing some sort of research. I have in the past been able to work at Oak Ridge National Laboratory doing population modeling, but I'd like to maybe work for an NGO or for some other type of institute that does policy type research, something that maybe can have some tangible benefits for people who are underprivileged or who might not have the voice themselves or the tools to communicate with people in power that maybe I can help them achieve with my research experience and the things that I've learned in the process of obtaining my degree. Eventually, maybe a year or two down the line, I would like to also go on and try to go for a PhD. I'd like to continue this type of research, and it's really gratifying to conceptualize a project, to go out there, to do all of the laborious work, but to see that come to fruition and to disseminate your research and the places it gets you, both geographically but emotionally and within yourself in terms of confidence, are really wonderful character building things, and I look forward to continuing that throughout the rest of my life, to be honest.